Hello everybody. Thanks so much for joining in today. Welcome to another AMA here on the Polygon Discord. Today we are speaking with one of my favorite projects, Kaleido, and today we have Nicko and Trevor with us today from the Kaleido core team. How are you guys doing today?
Hey, great, thanks. So glad to be here and talk about Kaleido and Firefly, and really excited. Thank you so much for having us.
The feeling's mutual. Really excited to hear all about that and everything that's new with you guys since I last spoke with you. But before we get into Kaleido, I was hoping you could introduce yourself to the Polygon community. Let us know who you are, what's your backstory, what got you into the crypto and Web3 space, and ultimately involved with working on Kaleido.
Sure, yeah. Thanks so much. Yeah, my name is Nicko Guyer. I'm a senior software engineer here at Kaleido. I'm also the open source community lead for the Hyperledger Firefly project. Would love to talk more about Firefly in a little bit, but yeah, just a quick background kind of about myself. I've been here at Kaleido for almost 2 years. Previously, I worked for a digital communications company, working on SMS, voice over IP software, and a bunch of stuff like that. I've always liked cutting edge technology. I've liked building new things or trying new things, and so I worked on a research and development team for a long time, and I knew that I loved trying to create something new. And so was attracted to the world of blockchain and also startups, just out of a desire to work on something new, to build something new, and to try to do things that hadn't been done before. Blockchain, obviously, it's been around for quite a while now, but it's still a growing market. There's a lot that's still to come, and I think it's got a lot of room to grow. And so Kaleido was really interesting to me because it's not necessarily just strictly crypto, but it's taking the underlying technology of blockchain and unlocking that amazing technology for enterprises and for businesses, and to help them build business enterprise grade applications that can use all of the amazing advantages that a distributed ledger, that a blockchain have. And so that was really exciting to me. So that was kind of how I got into it, just out of a desire to work on something new and cutting edge. And I've lived in the Raleigh area for most of my life now. Kaleido is headquartered right here in Raleigh, North Carolina, so it was nearby, which was even better. And yeah, that's kind of how I got here. And yeah, super excited to about our partnership with Polygon, and to be able to do this AMA today. So thanks so much.
Yeah, absolutely. Like I already said, the feeling's mutual. I'm really excited to have you here as I'm a big fan of Kaleido. And it's great to have you, especially considering, you've been involved with Kaleido for like over 2 years now, and you have a pretty senior role there. You're right, the senior full stack developer and Firefly. Sorry, could you say that what your role with Firefly is again?
Sure. Yeah, I'm the open source community lead. So what that means is I spend a lot of time in Discord and do stuff like this, and give presentations and help folks understand the project, and get involved in contributing to open source and all that good stuff.
Fantastic. You already kind of like got into my next questions about like what problems is Kaleido solving, and who is the target audience? I'm curious. Do you want to elaborate a little bit more on like the whole product suite that Kaleido has to offer?
Sure. Yeah, and I've got a couple of pictures as well, if that would be helpful for, I can share my screen if you think that would be helpful. I'm not gonna like give a whole slide deck presentation, but they say a picture's worth 1,000 words. So
Yeah, most definitely. I think that would be great. I think some visual representation always enhances the AMA. So
all right, can you guys see my screen? If I do this, can you still see it?
Yep, we can.
Okay, cool. So yeah, so Kaleido is, in short, Web3 and digital assets made really simple for enterprises. So, our target audience is enterprises, businesses, and like I said, trying to unlock that amazing technology of blockchain for businesses. So, what do we offer? We have blockchain as a service. We have digital assets. We have a service we call App Cloud. We have Firefly Enterprise, and so basically that in to sum it up in one sentence, it's making blockchain really easy for businesses. You can just click a button and you have your own private blockchain. You have all of the services that you need to build your enterprise business application on top of in a really easy way to manage it right from the web. And those could be private chains. That could be proof of stake, proof of authority. They could be layer 2 chains that run somewhere else, like Polygon. We'll talk about that in a little bit. Or they could be layer 1 chains as well. We have data centers all over the place in AWS and Azure. We support tons of different types of chains, tons of different technologies that you can run on the Kaleido platform. And some of the products that we offer, or kind of things that we power people to build, are digital assets, NFTs, building your own side chains. And one of the other really interesting things is a consortium as a service. And I could talk a little bit later about how Firefly really enables that. So, kind of across the top here are different products that we offer. And then those are built on top of both our blockchain as a service platform and the Firefly supernodes as well. So lots of cool stuff there. To sum it all up, it's blockchain made really easy for businesses. You can click a button and then you have all the services that you need to build your blockchain app.
Yeah, it's incredible. There's so many different offerings there. I don't recall seeing the sidechain as a service before, and yeah, there's a lot of new things I don't recall actually. Very excited to keep going down this rabbit hole and finding out more.
Yeah, I don't know if you have more questions about Kaleido, or if I haven't kept an eye on the chat either to see if there's things coming in here. I'll open up that as well.
A few GMs from the community.
Cool.
Yeah, I'm curious, like, what do you want to go into next? Because there is a lot of different things we could cover here.
Yeah, I mean, I'd love to talk about Firefly. That's what I do for. I talk about Firefly a lot, which I guess is good that I don't get tired of it. But have you used Firefly? Have you heard of it?
I've heard of it. I have not used it. So my experience with Kaleido, like, I've spun up my own Polygon Edge chain before, and I was able to connect it with MetaMask, get my test ETH, deploy my own contracts. So like I have a little bit of experience with Kaleido. But
okay,
yeah,
cool.
I'd love to find out more about what is Firefly and what can I build with it.
Yeah, so Firefly, I've got, again, I'm not going to run through a whole deck here, but I do have a couple of pictures. So Firefly is what we describe as an open source supernode. It's a complete stack for enterprises to build and scale Web3 applications. So what does that bundle of words mean? Basically, you need more than just a blockchain node in order to build a robust Web3 application, especially if you are an enterprise and you're building something that's more than just a prototype or proof of concept or some sort of cool tech experiment. There's a lot more that goes into it. What is all of that? Well, it's all of this stuff. Down at the bottom of this stack, you have your blockchain node. You may have stuff on IPFS. You're kind of keeping some data off chain, but there's a whole bunch of other stuff that you have to create to manage your transactions, managing wallets. I can go deep into it if you want, but there's a lot that's here. And so the short version of this picture is that Firefly takes care of a whole bunch of this stack for you. And gives you as a developer a really easy to use API. It gives you WebSockets for delivering events, and it gives you all of the building blocks that you need to build a really robust Web3 application. It's sort of like it's all these missing pieces that you, you know if you just spin up a blockchain node, it's that's one piece of the puzzle to building a Web3 app. And Firefly is a platform that you can build that on. It's open source, so it's highly pluggable, highly extensible, and so it works with a bunch of different technologies. Works with a bunch of different chains. We can get into that in a bit if you want. But its role is to sort of be your Web3 gateway. So an enterprise can deploy Hyperledger Firefly within their enterprise, and they can use Firefly to connect to the entire Web3 world, whether that is a consortium of maybe other Firefly nodes, or whether that's a layer 1 or layer 2 chain, whether it's an NFT marketplace, an exchange, and all sorts of DeFi apps. Firefly can connect to all these different things. It can be the one central point where an enterprise organization can say, okay, we want to use Firefly as sort of an API gateway, if you will, to the blockchain world, to the Web3 world. And it can also interact with consortiums of networks as well. So lots of things that you can do with it, but in short, it makes building blockchain apps really easy because it gives you an easy to use API to do that. So I'll pause there. I'd love to keep this kind of interactive, keep it a dialogue. If folks have questions, feel free to chime in. But yeah, I'll pause there for a minute though.
Yeah, please drop your questions in the chat if you have any questions. Highly encourage you to ask them. One thing I'm curious about is like what types of chains this is compatible with. Like, is it everything you guys do? Is it exclusively focused on Ethereum virtual machine compatible chains?
Yeah, great question. So out of the box, Firefly works with Ethereum compatible chains and Hyperledger Fabric as well. And so actually I realized there was a slide in here that I wanted that I did not grab. But Firefly it's a very modular architecture. It's a microservice architecture, so there are many different services within a Firefly supernode, and each of those microservices can have different plugins to talk to different types of things. So today, out of the box in the open source, you can connect to an Ethereum-based chain, whether that's Ethereum mainnet or Polygon or your own private chain, maybe running Hyperledger Besu or Quorum or something like that. And Hyperledger Fabric. There's two different plugins that are there today. But the goal of Firefly is not to be as maintainers we have the saying that we try not to be religious about particular technologies. We want to make it easy to build apps, whatever technology you want to use with your app, and so it's pluggable. If the community decides, hey, we really want support for this other type of chain that works slightly differently, there's a framework that you can use to build a connector to connect to a different type of chain as well.
Is if I'm building out some kind of project or dApp, is Firefly something I need to implement off the jump, or could I implement Firefly like retroactively as a way to upgrade my existing project?
Yeah, that's a great question, and we've actually seen both. I would definitely say it's probably easier if you. Well, I'm biased because when I think about how to build a blockchain app, I think of Firefly. But we've seen both. So Firefly you can absolutely use all of Firefly's built-in higher level building blocks, but we don't like I said, we try not to be religious about a particular way of doing things or a particular technology. So if you already have your own smart contract and you're like, hey, I just want to leverage maybe Firefly's event indexing capabilities on my own contract that I already have deployed, and we already have data on the chain that we're using. You can tell Firefly about that existing contract and add it. You can basically add Firefly on later to an existing chain, existing contract, and sort of enhance your application with that after it's already started. But you can certainly use it. I would recommend if you have the luxury of a greenfield project, starting with it from the get-go. I think it will make life a lot easier for everyone. But yeah, it can certainly be added in the future as well. I also see there's a question here in the chat from Richmond. Is Firefly a totally different project from Kaleido? It's a great question, and sorry I kind of glossed over that part. So Hyperledger Firefly is an open source project. So the Hyperledger Foundation is a subset of the Linux Foundation, focused on blockchain software for enterprises. So many of the maintainers of the open source Firefly project are engineers here at Kaleido, so including myself. And so yes, they are separate. Kaleido does run Hyperledger Firefly as a service, as part of our cloud platform that we offer. But the project itself is a completely open source project. There's a Discord server for the Hyperledger community that you can join if you want to get involved in the open source side of things. It's obviously a very close relationship with Kaleido, and Kaleido has a vested interest in seeing Firefly succeed. So we're really invested in it, and we love it. But that's sort of the relationship there. Hopefully that clarifies that.
That's really cool. I did not know that. So yeah, I definitely find that fascinating, and I'm gonna have to look into that more on my own time. I'm curious, how can Firefly be used with multiple chains? Like, can it be used with multiple chains? Like, I know a lot of builders believe in a multi-chain future. So
Yeah, and I think multi-chain and interoperability between chains is going to continue to be a really popular theme, and Firefly really helps with that. Let me scroll down here and see if I have some more pictures. So Firefly can operate in kind of two different modes. There is what we call gateway mode, which is where as a company, I deploy a Firefly supernode and I connect to a particular chain, and I'm interacting with that chain. I'm maybe deploying contracts, running transactions, indexing tokens, et cetera, et cetera. Firefly can also operate in what we call a multi-party mode, where this is actually the kind of where Firefly started, and what was available in the initial release, where hypothetical, I'm an organization in a consortium of companies. So maybe I'm an insurance company, for example, and I work with other insurance companies, and we've formed a consortium together. Like, we need to work together. We're competitors, but we all work in the same industry, and we need to exchange data, and we need to exchange value. And integrating technology integration across large enterprise organizations is really complicated. And so we've agreed that we want to use blockchain to integrate together. And Firefly really helps solve this problem. So using Firefly, you can build a multi-party network where each organization can run a Firefly node. They can run their own application. So it's a completely distributed network. So no one party owns the data. It's part of the ledger that's shared between all of these organizations. And Firefly facilitates, it provides an easy API to share data publicly with the entire consortium, to share data privately, selectively with certain members of the consortium, and to manage which data should be put on the chain, which data should be kept private and off the chain, and all of these things. And it gives all these building blocks to make what are really quite complex networks just very easy to build. I've only partially answered your question though. So how can Firefly work with multiple chains was the original question. The short answer is Firefly can work in both of these modes at the same time. And so Firefly has a concept of a namespace within it. And a namespace can have a set of plugins. So I could create a namespace in my Firefly node called Mumbai, and I could configure it to connect to the Polygon Mumbai testnet and configure all the other relevant plugins that I need. I could also configure a different namespace to be my my private multi-party consortium network as well. And maybe we're using a completely different type of chain here. Maybe this is a Hyperledger Fabric blockchain, or maybe this is a private quorum-based Ethereum blockchain. I can configure two different namespaces within Firefly, and depending on which namespace, the namespace just ends up being a part of the API. It's an API path parameter in the URL for when I make API requests. Depending on which namespace I make those requests to will determine which chain those transactions end up executing on. And so I can build an application that is aware of multiple chains at the same time using Firefly's API. And it's super easy. It's really cool. And yeah, I can't wait to see where this feature, to the ability to connect to multiple chains, just launched kind of last fall, and super excited to see some of the different ideas that the community has come up with and things that can be built with it. But really excited to see where it goes this year too.
Yeah, that's really fascinating. I feel like that'll open up a lot of exciting use cases, especially like ones we haven't seen yet, and so we'll continue to see lots of really exciting things being built with Firefly. I'm curious, like, are there any specific projects utilizing Firefly that you're really excited about? Like any specific examples?
There are. There's lots of cool stuff that I've talked about, with people in the community. Anything from building block explorers to token bridges, and just really cool stuff like that. And there are also some pretty on the Kaleido side of things. There are some really cool projects that are being worked on right now. I can't talk about all those today, but coming soon. There'll be some news about that, and so really looking forward to those.
Awesome. Yeah, no, I can totally respect that. You got to police the alpha sometimes. Can't share too much alpha. But yeah, it's good to hear that 2023 is going to be a really big year for Firefly and Kaleido. So I'll make sure to stay tuned. How can Firefly be utilized with Polygon?
Yeah. Do you want to see it work? Do you want to see a demo?
Absolutely. Yeah, I think
okay, cool. This is the part I'm most excited about. Slides are okay, but working code is always better. All right, so what I'm going to do is try to share my whole screen here, and hopefully I'll get this right. Okay, can you see my screen?
Yep, you can.
Okay, cool. Yeah, so the question was, how can Firefly work with Polygon? Glad you asked. There's actually a tutorial that walks you through how to set this up, and you can try it out on your own if you'd like. So what I'm going to do right now is basically just walk through that tutorial. I'm going to show you, kind of take you step by step through how to get that set up, but you're welcome to go try this. I encourage you, if you're interested in the project, to try it out on your own and see what you can do. So to get here, I just went to the doc site. This is hyperledger.github.io/firefly. I'll go ahead and drop that link in the chat here. And then I went to the tutorial section, and then to work with connecting to remote blockchains, and then clicked on Polygon testnet. And that's how I got to this page. So there is a tool called the Firefly CLI that is, there's some instructions on here that say, hey, this is a prerequisite for this is set up the Firefly CLI on here. These docs will walk you through how to do that, depending on what platform you're on, if you're Linux, Windows, or Mac. Firefly CLI is a developer tool. It's designed to set up Firefly and all of its dependencies on your machine, so you don't have to worry about like installing a bunch of software. And like I said earlier, Firefly is a microservice architecture, so there's a lot of different things that run when we run Firefly. So Firefly CLI takes care of all that hard work of setting everything up for you. It's pretty easy to install, and it runs everything in Docker. So that's the tool that we're going to be using here today. I've gone ahead and installed it already. So this tutorial will walk you through. Basically, we want to create a config file here, and this is just going to say that for this network that we're connecting to, we want 4 confirmations, and we're going to look at the network itself for the price of gas. That's all that's doing. So I'm just going to create. See, I probably need to make this my terminal font bigger so people can read that. So I'm going to just do. Oh. Look at that. Okay, so I already created that earlier. So I basically just pasted that into a YAML file. Now I'm going to scroll down here, and I'm going to use this ff-init command to create a Firefly stack. And then it says to use a selected RPC endpoint. So if you go to the Polygon docs, basically we're going to connect to I'm going to use testnet. I don't really want to spend real money today. So we're going to connect to testnet so that we can get some free Matic and run some transactions and just play around with things. I happen to have an RPC node already that one of my colleagues is running, so I'm just going to use that one instead of one of the. But you're welcome to use whatever remote RPC node that you want to connect to as your Polygon RPC node. So I'm going to run ff-init, and I'm going to call my network Polygon. And basically, this will just write a whole bunch of config files. Like I said, it uses Docker and Docker Compose behind the scenes. And it'll say, if you want to look at it, you can go look at your Docker Compose file here. There's an override file if you want to tweak things and customize it. You can do that. There's lots of flexibility. But it says, to start your new stack, you can just run ff-start Polygon. So that's what we're going to do. Okay, so that'll take a minute here. If this is the very first time you have run this, it may take longer because it's going to go behind the scenes. It's going to pull a bunch of Docker images. So what it's setting up right now, I'll kind of describe what's going on behind the scenes while it goes, is it's pulling a bunch of Docker images. It's setting up a Firefly core node. And I kind of skipped over some of these flags, but I'll go back and kind of tell you the different things that we're doing here. So this is saying, don't run this in a multi-party consortium network. I want to run this in gateway mode. I want a Firefly node, and I want to connect to a blockchain, and I don't care about anybody else running Firefly right now. I'm going to be using an Ethereum blockchain. I'm going to use the EVM Connect blockchain connector, and I'm going to connect to a remote RPC node instead of running one on my machine. And this is the URL for that thing. The chain ID, this is the chain ID of Mumbai testnet, and then we're going to pass in our custom config file here. So that's going to configure our Firefly core node, our blockchain connector. It's going to give us, it'll actually give us an IPFS node as well. You can configure that IPFS node to be a private cluster if you want. That's the default behavior. You can also configure it to be to connect to public IPFS as well. So if you want to say publish a metadata JSON or publish an image to launch an NFT collection, you can do that, and you can do it all from here as well. This is a great way to play around with it and learn some of these technologies. So yeah, it's starting up all those components, and in the meantime, okay, there we go. I just started it up. So if we go back to our tutorial here, so the next thing that we need to do is get some Matic. So what I'm going to do is get the account address that my command line generated for me. Okay, so this is the address that my Firefly core node has the signing key for this address, and that's the default key that my Firefly node is going to use when it submits transactions to the chain. So to get that, I just ran ff accounts list. Oh, you know what? This is for the wrong. It's that one actually. I was testing this earlier today. So this is the key that it's going to use. So if I go look up that, I'm just going to go to Polygon Scan and go to testnet and look up this address. Basically, I should see nothing. Okay, that's what I expect. I've never submitted a transaction from this key. So we're just going to go to the faucet and get some Matic. And this will just give us a little bit of currency that we can use to deploy a contract and submit some transactions and all that good stuff. All right, so it'll take a second to get confirmed on the chain here. All right, so we've got 0.2 Matic. That's great. We can go back to our tutorial, and it just basically tells you, make sure you've got your currency. We do, and then you're kind of, this is the end of this tutorial, and now you can do any of the things that you can do in Firefly on this chain. So that's kind of the end of this tutorial, is just how to get it set up. Some of the things that I want to show, though, are you can find in some of the other tutorials, like using tokens, working with custom smart contracts, and all this stuff. So there's lots of tutorials on how to do certain types of things in Firefly, and I definitely encourage you to go check those out. So what I want to show you is, I want to actually run a transaction on it to prove that this really works. So I would like to deploy a contract. So if I go back to my my console here, when I started everything up, it printed out a couple of URLs for me here. So here's the web UI, and we'll come back to the sandbox in a little bit. So this is the UI for my Firefly node that's running. This is a really great interface for operators of the system to see what's going on inside Firefly. It's not a this is not an interface that you use Firefly through. This is like an explorer or a dashboard of like, let me look at the system and see what's happening in it. So there's no way to actually submit transactions from this particular UI. I use the API for that, but this is a great place to go to look up, like, hey, something happened that I didn't expect. Maybe there was an error. Let me go look up a particular transaction and see what happened. It's a great web user interface to do that. While you're learning Firefly and playing around with it, if we go to, instead of /UI, if we go to /API here, we can get the full Swagger API docs for Firefly and all of its endpoints. This is also available in if you don't want to run, if you want to see this but don't want to run a whole Firefly instance, you can go to the docs and also go down here to API spec and see this same thing here. The only difference is you can't actually try it out here. This Swagger UI being hosted by my local Firefly is fully functional. I can actually use all of these endpoints right here, which is what I'm going to do. So to demonstrate the functionality, what I'm going to do is I'm going to deploy an ERC20 contract, and I'm going to mint some tokens and transfer them. So Firefly has an API to deploy a contract. I'm going to go here, and I'm just going to click try it out. And then it gives you a little JSON body to fill in. If you want to know what some of these things are, you can hit the schema tab, and then there's descriptions on each of these fields to kind of help you know what you should put in each field. So I'm going to flip over to Visual Studio Code, where I have my contract. This is my custom ERC20 that, I'll say I've been working on this, and I want to launch my token project. Essentially, it just extends OpenZeppelin ERC20, and it allows me to associate some data with transfers, and Firefly can use that capability as well, and I'll show that in just a little bit. So this is my Solidity file. I've gone ahead and already compiled it, and I've got that compiled JSON file here with the ABI and the bytecode. So basically what we need to do is the contract field, that's where the compiled bytecode is going to go, so I'm just going to scroll down to the bottom here, grab that. And then in the definition field, this is where the ABI for my contract will go, and that helps Firefly understand the shape of my contract, all of the functions on it, all of the events that it can emit, and all the type information for everything as well. So basically just going to scroll down here and copy this whole thing, and that goes in the definition field. For this, we don't need an idempotency key. That's a cool feature, but we don't need it right now. Okay, so input. Input is going to be the constructor arguments for the contract. So if I go back and I look at my Solidity file, I can see that my constructor has two arguments. It has a name and it has a symbol. And so this is where we get to set the symbol for our contract that we're going to deploy. I'm going to call this one FFC, and I'm going to, because I'm not feeling very creative at the moment, its name is also going to be FFC. The key is, this is the signing key that I'm going to use to deploy this contract. It will use this as the default key just because of the way it's set up, but it's always a good practice to explicitly tell Firefly what key you want to use. Options we don't need right now, but this is a way that you could you can pass other fields to the blockchain connector, essentially there. Okay, so that's what we need to deploy the contract. I'm going to hit execute and let that run. While we're waiting for that transaction to get confirmed, I'll just pause. I realize I've been going through a lot, and I don't know if folks have any questions or things I can clarify before we keep going here.
Well, I'll start by saying this is really, really, really cool. And yeah, if anyone has any questions, make sure to drop them in the chat. I'm really excited to look into this more on my own time. I'm learning lots I want to look into. One thing I'm curious about, I guess, would be, could you set something? I feel like the answer is yes, but could you set something up that observes the blockchain, like maybe for a token to hit a certain price, or a NFT to hit a certain price, or maybe like a vault to fall into the threshold where it's like primed to get liquidated by like a, you know how like a some liquidation mechanisms work. Like, could you make something that observes these events on the blockchain, and then when those events happen, it like executes
Yeah, absolutely. So actually, I'm going to show you that in just a little bit, how we can leverage Firefly's event indexing functions with a token contract. So Firefly wouldn't necessarily have APIs for like triggering when a price has hit a certain amount, but it can deliver events of what is happening on the chain in real time to your application over WebSocket. And then your app could make those decisions of like, oh, I saw this certain condition was met. Now I need to call out to some other service or do something. So it takes care of a lot of the really hard parts of like getting the data from the chain to your app in real time.
Right. Okay, that makes sense. So if it's an on-chain event, then it would be able to like kind of be like a listener for it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, cool. I'm not really a developer, so I've never really fully understood how all that works. But
hey, that's okay.
Yeah, that I'm very curious about.
Yep. Okay. Yeah, feel free to chime in with other questions. I'll try to pause as we go here, but looks like our transaction is done and it succeeded, so that's good. If I scroll down here, there's a lot that we get back from the blockchain connector, but the important parts are going to be down here. We can see how much we spent in gas to do that. That's not the important part. The important part here is the contract address. So this is the address of the thing that we just deployed. The other important thing that we'll use in just a second is the block number. So if we go back and look at Polygon Scan, and I'll just reload this page now, we can see, okay, here was my transaction that I just submitted. So, proof that this happened on a real public chain. You can go look up this, you can hit this URL on your own machine and see the transaction that I just submitted here. It was a contract creation. I can click on the transaction hash and I can see it, and we can go look at the contract itself, and there's the contract. Doesn't it make sense? So I haven't told Polygon Scan about the ABI for it, so it all it sees is the bytecode at this point. Okay, so our contract is there. We know what block number it's in. Now it's time to go use it. So Firefly has a sorry, getting all my tabs confused here. So we could continue doing stuff through the API in the Swagger UI here, but I also want to show the Firefly Sandbox, because the Firefly Sandbox is a really powerful tool to, even easier than this, to use Firefly and play around with it. So you'll notice we had another URL that was printed here when we stood up our stack, and that's the Sandbox UI. So Sandbox, you can think of as, it is an end user application that's using Firefly's API. It's connected to Firefly's WebSocket to look for certain events. And it basically has a nice form that's been built for you to be able to submit requests to Firefly. Okay, so one of the things that I want to show in the Firefly UI. Okay, so we'll go back and look at the Firefly UI. We can see we deployed our contract there. If we go look at the tokens dashboard, though, we can see there's nothing in here yet because we haven't told Firefly that we want to track this particular token. All we've done so far is deployed that contract. So I want to go to the sandbox, and again, I could use the API directly or the Swagger UI for this, but I just wanted to highlight the sandbox as well. So I'm going to create a new token pool, and the token pool is the thing that tells Firefly about, like, hey, there's this token that's on this chain at a certain address, and I want you to track it. And I want you to be aware of it and to be able to interact with it as well. Okay, so we called this FFC. It could actually figure that out from the contract. This is a fungible token. It's ERC20. We need to put our address, our contract address in here, which, I scrolled the page. It was down here. Sorry for all the scrolling. Okay, here it is. Here's our contract address. So I'm just going to paste that in here. And the other thing that we need is the block number. So if you don't give Firefly the block number, it doesn't know where in the chain to start looking for this contract. And so it will start at the beginning of time. And as you can see, we've had a lot of blocks on this chain, so that would take a very long time to catch up. What we're going to tell it is like, hey, just start at the block where we deployed this thing, because we know there are not going to be any events that are older than that. So I'm going to run this. So create a token pool for us, and we should be able to go back to the Firefly Explorer now and see, yep, here's our FFC contract. We can see it's a ERC20 fungible. The connector that it's using, the address, it has 18 decimal places. Firefly actually figured that out by looking at the contract itself. And we can see the transaction that it was deployed in. Okay, so again, no transactions have taken place on this token, but Firefly is aware of it now, and now it's tracking it. So let's go, let's mint some tokens now. So I'm going to mint, let's say 100. By default, this will go to the wallet that my Firefly node is using that address that we looked at on Polygon scan earlier. So we'll wait for that event to get confirmed in a few transactions here. And then if I go back, I'm going to go back and look at my wallet on Polygon scan. Okay, so there's 18 seconds ago, my mint function from my custom ERC20. And now I should be able to look at my ERC20 tokens tab. And yep, it's in there. I can see my 100 FFC that I just minted to my Firefly node. If I go look at the Firefly Explorer now, if I go look at the dashboard, refresh this. Firefly hasn't seen the... Should show up there. It may just take it a couple seconds as it's catching up. Let's do one more thing here. Let's now transfer... we'll try this. Firefly may still be catching up on this. Usually it picks it up right away. I'm not sure why it's not picking it up right now. I may have done something wrong in demoing it. It's always a wild card with a live demo, but I'm going to try to transfer this to my MetaMask wallet now. So what I'm going to do is go to my other browser instance where I've got a MetaMask wallet configured to use Mumbai. I'm going to just copy my address, paste it here, and I'm going to try to send myself 10 of these things. We'll run that. And then the other thing I probably need to do is tell MetaMask about this contract that I just deployed. So I'm gonna go grab the, oops. Grab that contract address, tell MetaMask about it, and we'll add a custom token. Oh, and then MetaMask already sees that I've got 10 of them already there. So there's my tokens that I just transferred from Firefly. So using Firefly, I deployed a token contract, I minted some tokens, and I transferred them to another wallet on a public chain, and did all that in about 20 minutes. So super cool, super powerful. I'll kind of turn it back over to you and the community here for any questions, or if there's questions on what I just did, or like other things that Firefly can do. Yeah, would love to spend some time chatting about this stuff now. But yeah, thanks for so much for letting me walk through that demo. I appreciate it.
Oh yeah, I really appreciate you coming out to do the demo and having the courage to do it. I run into so many errors just simply learning all this stuff, and I always have to ask so many questions. So I think it takes a lot of courage to actually do a live demonstration. And like you said, it's a wild card. So many things can go wrong. So, but yeah, that was phenomenal. One thing that I'm curious about, and you kind of touched on this, but I'm wondering if you could elaborate a bit more, is like how the private key is managed. Like, is that generated when you like set up an account with Firefly, and then do you like store your own seed phrase? How does that work?
Yeah. So the short answer is there's a lot of flexibility there. And it varies based on where you're running Firefly. So what I just demonstrated there is probably the simplest of simple cases. It's designed for a development environment. It is not designed to be a production ready thing. So the Firefly CLI, when I ran FF init, it generated a private key for me, and it generated the corresponding public address for it. And it just stored those on my disk in a certain folder. So it's not very secure. It's not how you would want to do it in production, but this is just it's a tool to get you up and running really fast to be able to try things out. That being said, if you are running this in a production context, like on Kaleido's platform with Firefly Enterprise, there are much more robust key management options. You can use node wallets. You can use an HD wallet or a hierarchical deterministic wallet, and there's stuff built in Firefly's services for hardware wallet systems and all kinds of that. So it depends on where Firefly is running and which of the microservices is in charge of signing the transaction. And so Firefly Core provides the API for your app to interact with, and you tell Firefly Core, this is the key that I would like to use. And Firefly Core will basically craft that request and send it to the blockchain connector, which could be using any number of different things to actually sign that transaction. So that's a little bit of a longer answer into how it works and how it's flexible.
Okay, cool. That makes lots of sense. And yeah, guys, if you have any questions, I'm sure there's lots. Like, make sure to ask them in the chat. And then you're showing how to use it through command line. Like, if you were to use Firefly on Kaleido, would you then access it through the Kaleido front end or user interface?
Yeah, absolutely. So everything that I ran in command line what I just demoed there was that's all open source. So anybody can go download that. You can do the exact same thing that I just did. If you run it on Kaleido, you get a fantastic web UI that allows you to just click a button, and then you have Firefly. And there's sort of the that interface is continuing to evolve and enhance, and so there are new capabilities coming soon for being able to configure different chains, whether they're a private chain that is running on Kaleido, or like I just demonstrated here, connecting to a public chain running somewhere else. That will all be bundled in with Kaleido's fantastic web UI for our platform as a service.
Are there any costs associated with using Firefly?
So no additional costs beyond the cost of running the nodes. So Kaleido has a um, you basically pay for the computing power that you're using on our platform. So if you want to spin up additional nodes, there's a price per node depending on what tier of account you have on our platform.
Very cool. Um, One thing I was curious about, and I guess this is like relates a lot to Kaleido too, because I noticed there was an announcement about Kaleido enabling Swift's new CBDC sandbox. Um, I'm curious if you could just like kind of like walk us through what are some of the key names in the industry that like Kaleido and slash or Firefly are working with.
Yeah. Yeah, so Swift is obviously one of the big ones. There, I, I, I'll probably actually defer on this question. I, I'm my primary role is open source community facilitator. So I actually talk to a lot of people from companies that I probably recognize, but I don't always know what company they're coming from because a lot of times it's just somebody pinging me on Discord, and so I talk with people from all over the world about cool things that they're building. I don't always know what they're building or who they're working for, but so unfortunately, I'm probably not the best person to ask that question. But there's a lot of really cool ones though.
Yeah, no worries. I can actually kind of relate to that. I feel like since Polygon is like a permissionless decentralized network, we often run into situations where we find out about really cool projects that we didn't even know we're building on Polygon. I think the most notable recent one would probably be Donald Trump. When that first happened, um, I put in our like group meme chat like Donald Trump's sales pitch for his NFT collection, and then 2 hours later, we're like, "Oh wow, this is on Polygon. Who knew this was on Polygon?" It's like no one on the entire business development team had a clue Donald Trump was launching an NFT collection on Polygon. It's just crazy. So, yeah, I think the fact that Swift is leveraging Kaleido's tech stack speaks volumes. Like, I don't think it gets much bigger than Swift, of course. Like, that is phenomenal. So, um, yeah, definitely some very innovative, game changing stuff that you guys are working on.
Yeah, for sure. We're definitely really excited about that.
Yeah, I know you can't share like too much alpha, but is there anything that you can share with us related to the roadmap? Like, what can we expect this year from Firefly and Kaleido?
Yeah, so Firefly is kind of the phase the project is in is I'd say it's kind of in a maturing phase. So the last 2 years we were really like the last year and a half building tons of really big new features in it, and we've we've hit a lot of those now, and so now we're at a point where it's a lot of smaller refinements. There's still new features that are coming, but they're not like whole entire new classes of APIs that didn't exist before that allow these radically huge things that we were building before. So still lots of cool things coming there, but definitely smaller in scale. And now we're just focused on continuing to improve, just polish all around, and that sort of thing on the project. So really excited to kind of see it the project at kind of this transition phase where it's now about improvements and refinements and just making it better. On the Kaleido side, you probably can't go into too much detail today, but there is I can say there's a new user experience coming that is going to be awesome, and it will make building Firefly apps and connecting to multiple chains a world-class experience. And I'm really excited for that product to launch and coming soon. That's sort of the teaser edition of that.
awesome. That's great to hear. Yeah, I've always thought Kaleido is a project everyone should keep their eye on. It's amazing how you guys are just flying under the radar, building so much in stealth mode. Um, wow, just realized what time it is. Honestly, I'd keep you here a lot longer if I could. I'd love to pick your brain for hours. Not to sound weird, but I've been really enjoying this AMA. It's very enlightening, very informative. I have so much stuff now that I want to go looking into. Um, so I'm curious, like, what's the best way for me to keep in touch with you? You mentioned you spend a lot of time on Discord. Where can people contact you, get involved with Kaleido and Firefly, and find out more information?
Yeah, would love to keep in touch with you and all the folks here. I'm happy to drop the link to the Hyperledger Discord, the open source community there, if you'd like. I don't know if that's considered brigading in this community to advertise other Discord servers in this Discord server.
Oh, no, 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 absolutely not. This is
Sure.
yeah, all good. This AMA
Yeah.
is focused on you and the builders, what you guys are building. Like it's I think it's
Yeah.
mutually beneficial relationship.
Let me grab a couple links for you here, and I will drop them in chat. That should be an invite link if folks want to join the Hyperledger Foundation Discord server. This is where all the open source discussion about Firefly and all the other Hyperledger projects happen. So when you join that, there are a ton of channels in there. There is a Firefly channel. I think, hopefully, depending on how they have the server set up, that link should take you straight to the Firefly channel, but they may redirect you to like the server rules or something. So that's I'm on there every day. If you drop a message in the Firefly channel, it will ping me, and I would love to connect with you there. And also, just obviously if you're interested in the project and the code, there's the link to the GitHub for Firefly, and the docs link out from there as well. And so that's where all the source code's at. Firefly is, like I said, it's a microservice architecture, so there's a bunch of different GitHub repos. There should be links to all of them from there, though. That's kind of the main one right there.
Fantastic. Well, we are at 12 o'clock, so I think it's a good time to wrap things up. Um, there's tons of links in the chat. So yeah, go join the Discord. Um, Nicko, feel free to share your social media too if you want. I got all the Kaleido links as well. And yeah, thanks everyone for joining in today and attending this AMA. And I'm really grateful to you as well, Nicko, for joining us and sharing so much knowledge with me and the Polygon community. I've really enjoyed this, so thank you again.
Absolutely. Yeah, thank you so much for the privilege. It was great getting a chance to chat, and hope to talk again soon. This was really fun.
Yeah, anytime. I'll definitely probably hit you up as soon as I run into some issues testing this all out. And if anything, you're always welcome back here for another AMA. So
Sounds good.
perfect. Well, with that said, I hope everyone has a wonderful day. I'm gonna get going now. Bye.
All right. Thanks, everybody. Bye bye.
Bye, everybody.